The movie begins in Santa's village, and the elves are getting ready to start their work. Then we are introduced to an elf named Duncan, and says he was responsible for creating a device that organizes Santa's list. Duncan manages to realize that his invention is failing, and he goes on his way to meet up the engineers because he wants to find out what happened. He then uses the computer to investigate the programming and realizes that there is an error in his algorithm. But suddenly they are interrupted by the arrival of Santa Claus, and Duncan starts telling him that the program is failing because of the fault of a child. Because by his actions, he is not in any of the categories, and the program doesn't really know where to put him. So Santa Claus decides that he would send Duncan to spy him because he must correct the list in order to deliver the gifts. They then use a portal to teleport him to the city, and Duncan is scared because he hasn't left the North Pole. We go to the Loud family house, and Lincoln is recording a video with the help of his friend Clyde. Because he is telling the list of what he would ask Santa Claus for, because he wants to convince him that he is a good person. We then find out that each family member made a different letter, and that everyone is excited to receive their gifts. Lincoln begins to say that they always send the letters heading towards the North Pole, and that they would go to the Gingerhausen to put them in the mailbox, while the elf Duncan ends up getting caught by the family's car. Lincoln then says that visiting the Gingerhausen is a family tradition, and that they have the largest collection of nutcracker dolls. The family starts singing that they like Christmas too much because they can get presents while they are on vacation. We go to the Gingerhausen, and they put their letters in the mailbox to be sent to Santa Claus. Then they go to a restaurant to have a family breakfast, and Duncan realizes that he has found Lincoln. Mr. Loud invites his family to visit a store, but they all decline the invitation because it sounds too boring. Lincoln is excited to receive his Christmas present because he asked for a toy of his favorite character. While his sisters are taking pictures in various parts of the place, but Lincoln hits Lola with a snowball, and that ends up causing the list to move again. Mr. Loud arrives to the store speaking a different language and manages to convince the owner to give him an ingredient from the North Pole. Duncan is spying Lincoln to analyze his behavior, but now he realizes that he gave away the last cookie and that this has caused him to be on the good list. But suddenly, by accident, he had slipped off the roof, and that had caused his presence to be discovered. While Lucy is investigating for the location of Krampus and decides to go into a store to look at the ugly sweaters, we go to the souvenir store, and Mrs. Loud is happy because she found the missing doll in her collection. The kids are walking around trying to lose their stalker, and they take him to an abandoned place to catch him in a trap. They then start attacking him to get him to reveal his identity, and Duncan ends up confessing to them that he is one of Santa's elves and that he was given the mission to observe his behavior. Because at the North Pole, they don't know where to categorize him, and that because of his actions, he is on the naughty list. So Lincoln worries that he is not going to receive gifts and tries to convince the elf that he is a good person. But suddenly, his sisters had opened the door, and Duncan takes the opportunity to escape from the carriage. Lincoln begins to follow him to convince him that he is good, but accidentally causes several disasters to occur and keeps raising the points that he is a naughty boy. He then manages to reach the elf to grab him by his cape, but that ends up causing him to simply disappear. We return to the Loud family house, and Lincoln is worried about being on the naughty list. His friend starts telling him that he did too much pranks throughout the year, and that he never thought about the consequences of his actions. Lincoln gets the idea that he can solve the problem because he has time before Christmas starts, and that he would do good deeds to get him moved from the list. Then he starts asking about who needs help, but his family is thinking it's another one of his pranks, and he decides to meet with Lisa to help her with his inventions. But his sister replies that she doesn't need his help because her inventions are too advanced. So they have the idea that they would go to various parts of the city to help people, but they fail to realize that everything turns bad, which ends up causing Lincoln to lose more points, and they are confused about what to do. Then Lincoln decides that he must hack the device because it is the only way to get his gift, and manages to convince the robot because Lisa would not help him. The robot connects to the computer to start the hacking, but accidentally causes a power outage, and the device starts to fail due to the overload. In the next morning, the family is excited that Christmas has arrived, and Lincoln is happy because he got what he asked for. But his sisters are sad because they only received coal, and Mr. Loud thinks they failed as parents. Then Lincoln realizes that it was all his fault because he pushed the buttons and ended up flipping the list, and all the good kids had received coals, which also caused Chandler to become mayor because he asked as a gift to become the chief of the city. Lincoln confesses to his family that he had ruined Christmas because he used a device to get on the good list, and that the program had failed due to an overload. But suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, and Mr. Flip informs them that he had asked to be the owner of their restaurant as a gift. Lincoln feels guilty about ruining Christmas for all the good people and says they have to do something to solve the problem. problem. Then Lily shows them that she had found a map with the location of the North Pole, and they decide to work as a family to save Christmas. We go to the Gingerhausen, and Lincoln starts showing them where the elf disappeared. The family realizes that there is a stone on the ground that has quantum energy, and they can charge it with light to make the portal open. They then go running to jump into the portal, and end up being teleported to the location of the North Pole. So they are excited to meet it in person, but they manage to realize that the place had been modified with various evil things, and they start running away to try to escape. Lincoln begins to apologize for ruining the North Pole, and they go their separate ways to escape the monsters. But they manage to realize that there are too many creatures, and that it doesn't matter where they go because they had been surrounded. Then a door is opened so that they are not caught, and they manage to be saved thanks to Duncan's help. The elf starts telling them that he had returned from Royal Woods, and that he corrected the information so that everything was perfect. But suddenly, the place had begun to transform, and he was only saved because he was in the freezer. Lisa confesses to the elf that everything had been caused by her brother's fault because he modified the list that was in his device. So they say that they must modify the list so that everything returns to normal, and that they must get to the office to reverse the programming. Then they use candy to make a catapult because they want to use it to get to the office. The family starts to go down the line they built, but they realize that their idea didn't work and that they got trapped. So Duncan decides that he would be a distraction to be followed by the creatures, and the family takes the opportunity to get to the office. They then use the elevator to get to the top of the building and start running to use the computer. Lisa uses the computer to modify the programming, but they manage to realize that their plan had not worked because Santa Claus had also been affected by the failure. Santa starts telling them that everything had been caused by the worst of the naughty ones, and that he is considered a star among the people in his army. He then shows them a recording of the evil things he did, and we see that his friends are being upset because of the wishes. Lincoln realizes that he has made a big mistake because he was always a naughty boy, and accepts Santa's invitation to join his army. The family is disappointed by Lincoln's decision, and they end up being taken to the coal mine to serve as slaves, and realize that Duncan was also captured. We go to Santa, and he accidentally confesses that they trapped his family to keep them as slaves. He then begins to sing that he plans to modify Christmas to reward the naughty ones, and that now they would only focus on doing evil things. Lincoln takes the opportunity to steal toys, and manages to use handcuffs to trap Santa Claus. We return to the mines, and Lincoln begins to infiltrate to save his family. Lincoln begins to tell them that he is sorry for the trouble he caused, and that he would do whatever it takes to save Christmas. They then return to the surface to think of an idea, and Duncan manages to realize that they had brought a potion that has the magic of Christmas. So they realize that the magic of Christmas was changed at the North Pole, and that they can use the potion to get it back to normal. But suddenly, they are discovered by Santa's army, and Lincoln motivates his family to fight for Christmas. He then gives them the toys that he had stolen from Santa because it would help them to fight against the army. The family starts attacking them with the automatic snowball shooter, and we see for the first time one of Lucy's eyes. Lisa has the idea that she can use holograms to trick the elves, and Lynn takes the opportunity to attack them by surprise, while her brother Lincoln is along with Duncan the elf on their way up the mountain, and they plan to climb to the top to get to the source of the magic. Santa starts baking to make gingerbread cookies and manages to make a sleigh shaped like a motorcycle. He then begins to prepare to turn them into cookies, but manages to realize that Lincoln was not with them, so he goes at high speed to reach them on the mountain, and the Loud family decides that they would repair the sled to try to stop him, while Duncan realizes that he had made a mistake because Lincoln is actually a good person, and that he should have looked at his feelings instead of just trusting his code. But suddenly, they hear that Santa Claus has arrived, and he starts shooting at them to try to stop them. They then continue climbing to get to the top of the mountain, but are accidentally hit so that they lose their flask. Santa begins telling them that they were too close, and tries to convince Lincoln to become his successor. He then begins to prepare to shoot Duncan the elf, but Lincoln decides to sacrifice himself so that his friend won't be harmed, which ends up causing him to turn into a cookie, and Lincoln begins to glow thanks to the magic of Christmas. The magic begins to float on its way up the mountain, and we see that its power is changing the world so that everything returns to normal. We then realize that Lincoln was also saved, and that his family is happy that he wasn't hurt. Santa starts thanking them for saving Christmas, but Lincoln is sad that they didn't enjoy the celebration because of their selfishness. So Santa tells him not to worry, and decides to use magic to make it Christmas again. The family runs excitedly to open their gifts, and we see that this time they did receive what they asked for. Then Lincoln realizes that his family lost their memories, and that he is the only person who knows what happened. But suddenly, he hears that his friend was calling him, and Clyde is happy because he got what he wanted. disappointed. Then Lincoln realizes they gave him a better tool to thank him for what he did, and says it's the best Christmas he's ever had in his life. While at the North Pole, Santa is saying that they need an upgrade because they realized that there are more good people.
This is how the movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on what more movies you would like to see on the channel.